Warren Buffett issues a final warning regarding rapidly increasing inflation and offers some advice on how to protect yourself. In this video, we'll find out the best advice that Warren has given during this difficult time. So stay tuned to your Top Tech and Trades channel. Before we move on, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. We're seeing a lot of inflation right now. It's fascinating that we're raising prices and that they're being accepted. The price of constructing a home has recently risen. Every day, the price of steel rises. The economy has exploded, and we were not prepared for it. Recently, we closed the furniture stores. If they were closed for 6 weeks or so, they didn't know what was going to happen. When they open up, they can't stop people from buying things, and we can't deliver them. The backlog grew, and we thought it would be over once the 600 payments were completed. However, it just kept going and going from August of last year. Warren Buffett said every week he talks to Ivor Blumkin of Nebraska Furniture Mart and go over day by day about what happened at 3 different stores in Chicago, Kansas City, and Dallas, and it won't just stop. People with more money are willing to pay greater costs. Our expenses are rising, and our supply chains are all messed up for a variety of reasons. For a small fraction of the population, this is a dreadful scenario. Warren cited an example that he hadn't worn a suit for a year practically, and that means the dry cleaner near his place just went out of business because nobody's bringing in suits to get dry cleaned. Inflation is occurring at a faster rate than most people expected. We will undoubtedly have inflation over time, and we are already pursuing policies in our nation to promote things that stimulate business, all of which are guaranteed to have inflationary repercussions, especially given the amount to which we borrow money from the rest of the world.
On a related question, L. Candle wrote in on this too and said, if you can borrow money at a guaranteed low or even zero interest rate, is it still worthy of borrowing money for not that guaranteed cost from the insurance operation?
It reduces the value of float by a substantial amount. And we have a flexibility with our float that virtually no one has. And I've written about this in the annual letter. But the value of float has gone down dramatically because everything is off of interest rates. And when you get to negative interest rates, if a country can borrow at negative interest rates, you get into something that's kind of akin to the St. Petersburg paradox. And those of you who want to go to search, you can find some interesting things on it. But it becomes infinite. It's a crazy consequence of a bunch of abstract mathematics where you get there. But you lose gravity entirely. And if you tell me that I'm going to have to lend money to the government at minus 2% a year, and I'm talking nominal figures now. You're just telling me how I'll go broke over time. if I do that, so it pushes you to do other things. And of course, we've seen it. Well, we saw the rest of the world do it in even more extreme fashion. But nobody, Paul Samuelson, brilliant man. Nobody thought you could do this, and we don't really know what the consequences are. But we know there are consequences, obviously.
World. Politicians in the future would be extremely human if they decided to repay the rest of the world with dollars that are worth significantly less than the dollars they borrowed. It's a tried and true method of lowering the effect and expense of foreign debt, and we've accumulated a lot of it. When politicians now talk about using taxpayer money to do this, taxpayer money to do that, and how taxpayers are paying the bonuses at AIG, I always find it fascinating, according to Buffett. We haven't raised taxes at all in this country. Taxpayers are paying nothing beyond what they were paying a couple of years ago. Matter of fact, The federal revenues this year were close to 2.6 trillion a couple of years ago. So we are taking less money from the taxpayers. The people who are really paying for the things we're doing now will probably be the people who are buying fixed dollar investments, much of it from the US government, and who will find the purchasing power when they go to redeem those investments to be far less.
This question's for Charlie. It comes from Stephen Tedder in Atlanta. He's been a Berkshire shareholder for 10 years and says, you and your friend Li Lu have been very optimistic with respect to investing opportunities in China. BYD has performed spectacularly for Berkshire since its initial purchase in 2008 and is currently valued at $5.8 billion. The Daily Journal recently bought a large position in Alibaba after founder Jack Ma had been reprimanded by the Chinese Communist Party, and Ma's other company, Ant, was not allowed to proceed with its IPO. What are your current thoughts on China and whether the communist leaders will allow businesses with strong leadership to flourish in decades to come?
Well, I think that the Chinese government will allow businesses to flourish. It was one of the most remarkable things that ever happened in the history of the world when a bunch of committed communists just looked at the prosperity of places like Singapore and said, the hell with this, we're not going to stay here in poverty, we're going to copy what works. And they changed communism. They just accepted Adam Smith and added it to their communism and said, now we have communism with Chinese characteristics, which is China with a free market with a bunch of billionaires and so forth. And they made that shift. They deserve a lot of credit. Warren and I are not quite as good at that as changing our minds in many cases.
Yeah.
And that was a remarkable change coming from such a place. And of course, it's worked like gangbusters. It had this enormous growth in the average income of the average Chinese. They've lifted 800 million people out of poverty fast. And there was never anything like it in the history of the world. So my hat is off to the Chinese. And I think they will continue to allow people to make money. They've learned it works. The Chinese, I loved what the guy said in the first place. I don't care whether the cat is black and white as long as it catches mice. That's my kind of talk.
In that list of the 20 most valuable companies, just 3 are Chinese. Now, if you're looking out 30 years, how many do you think will be Chinese? My guess is more, but I don't think they'll top the United States. But who knows? It's amazing what has been accomplished, and
really amazing.
And they found what works. I mean, there's nothing like finding something works in order to sort of reinforce ideas over time, and we'll see what happens. But I would bet there will be more than 3, but I will bet the United States has more than China has too.
So you might say that the Chinese are the people that are ultimately paying the most in terms of the loss of purchasing power. They will have their holdings of government bonds, US government bonds, many years down the road. Much of this will be paid for in the long run by a decline in the actual value of fixed dollar assets, and that will be the simplest thing to accomplish. And if it's the simplest thing to do, it's also the most likely to occur. You will see plenty of inflation now. The best protection against inflation, according to Warren, is your own earning power. If you're the best teacher, if you're the best surgeon, if you're the best lawyer, you will command a given part of other people's production of goods and services, no matter what the currency is. As a result, your personal earning potential is significantly superior. If you're the best in your field, whatever it is, you will be given a piece of the national economic pie. A wonderful business is the second best protection. If you own a trademark corporation, such as Coca-Cola, you will receive a certain percentage of people's work for your product. In 20 years and 50 years, it makes little difference what happens to the price, since individuals are willing to forego a few minutes of effort in exchange for a 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola. So those are the greatest assets. Your own earning power first, and then the earning power of a wonderful business that does not require heavy capital investment. If it requires heavy capital investment, you get killed in inflation. And with those guidelines, Warren's advice is that the best thing to do is invest in yourself. And yes, the young man should become a brain surgeon and invest in Coca-Cola instead of government bonds. If you discount it back and you're discounting at present interest rates, stocks are very, very cheap. Now the question is, what interest rates do over time? However, based on the yield curve out of 30 years and beyond, there is a forecast of what interest rates will be. It's a fascinating era that we've never seen before. In economics, one thing to remember is that you can never do just one thing because you must continually ask, and then what? We're sending massive quantities of money out. President Joe Biden stated that 85% of the people will receive a $1,400 check. But we previously stated that 40% of the people would be unable to come up with $400 in cash. So we've got 85% of the people getting those sums, and so far, we've had no unpleasant consequences from it. People feel better. It causes stocks to go up. It causes business to flourish. It causes an electorate to be happy. But there are consequences to everything in economics because the world is more complicated than we thought. The best investment against inflation is to improve your own earning power, your own talents. If you increase your talents, they can't tax it. They can't take it away from you. So if you become more useful in your activities, that is the best investment and best protection against a currency that might decline at a rapid rate. A good business is a passive investment. If you own a good business, you're likely to keep your purchasing power regardless of what happens to the currency. Warren Buffett has proven time and again that he's the man for the job. Now, what do you think about his warning? Comment down below. If you like the video, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell. Once again, this is your Top Tech and Trades channel. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.